a lot of news on my timeline basically saying Call of Duty's dead. They put out this blog essentially saying, we're sorry for making bad decisions. So it says, first off, thank you for the feedback we received over the last few months. Call of Duty has enjoyed long-standing success because of all of you. Yes, because people buy the games every single year, regardless if they are good or bad. And unfortunately, the sales don't always represent how good a game is. Vanguard had over 30 million sales. Black Ops 6 had like 45 million sales. And those weren't representative of how good those games were and how well they supported seasonally. That's one thing I want to make clear. But regardless of that, a passionate community that demands excellence and deserves nothing less. We also know that for some of you, the franchise has not met your expectations fully. And this means something different for different people. Sometimes it's related to microtransactions. This is the fact that they charge $70 for a game, or the fact that their microtransactions are like a free-to-play game, but there's all kinds of issues. People have issues about support from year to year, if their stuff's going to carry over, engine changes, how we adapt with ricochet and anti-cheat and all those types of things. To be very clear, we know what you expect. I doubt this because they really struggle to hit this mark, and they do things like silly all the time. So I really have a lot of doubt in this specific phrase there. We know what you expect, and rest assured we will deliver. Hard to take that promise as a thing because I feel like this isn't from Treyarch, right? This is definitely has a different messaging. It's obviously above Treyarch, so Activision and Xbox is essentially making this statement. With respect to Black Ops 7, we set our sights to deliver a spiritual successor to Black Ops 2, and the studios have poured their passion to making a great game that all of you can be proud of. And the part where they missed with here is everything that comes down to the campaign being just so off-putting relative to Black Ops 2. They really missed the mark. If they would have nailed that, we'd have a different conversation about the perception of the game. We still have a ton of COD fatigue because I think a lot of people are at that point. They really missed the mark on the campaign. Multiplayer, there's not much narrative in that, nor is there really zombies in terms of carrying over from Black Ops 2. Multiplayer, because obviously the zombies got their own story going on. Endgame is its own new thing, but again, doesn't really tie into being that spiritual successor to Black Ops 2, at least narratively with the story and basically being in a fog the entire campaign. But it's one thing for us to say it. More importantly, it's up to you to try it and judge for yourself. So as it relates to Black Ops 7 and the future Call of Duty, here are a few important notes. Before we get into the free-to-play weekend, I do have a sponsor section, which we'll do now. Today's video is brought to you by Factor Meals, a company I've worked with multiple times, and it's basically a meal delivery service that delivers fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. And super convenient because they're ready to eat in 2 minutes. With over 100 different options that rotate out weekly in different combinations, whether you have specific dietary needs, whether you want specific protein, low calorie, keto, vegan, or even veggie. And there's something I find particularly helpful, especially when I get busy on the grind with the new Call of Duty that just came out. Been putting in a lot of hours. In case I don't want to skip a meal, I can just hit the kitchen, pop it in the microwave, and then ready to go in a couple minutes. And because of that variety, it's something different every single time. And at this point, I think I've had countless different meals and I've never had a duplicate. And that just shows you how much variety they provide, even for the pickiest of eaters. And it's pretty easy to get started. If you want to try it yourself, you can click the link to the top of the description. Use code JGOD FB50 for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for a year. Again, that's JGOD FB50 for 50% off your first box plus breakfast for a year. Thank you again to Factory for sponsoring today's video. Welcome back. You'll have an opportunity to play Black Ops 7 for free. Obviously, a lot of people got a chance to play it in the beta. I don't think it's significantly different from the beta other than there's more map availability for multiplayer. Zombies is significantly different from the beta. They only allowed you to play the one survival map on farm. Now you have access to 2 survival maps. You got Cursed. You got the 2 full maps with the Easter eggs, the Ashes of the Dam, and the new one. And you're going to get some double XP weekends, so you'll be able to level some stuff up. We would like to experience the game firsthand and decide for yourself. A lot of this, I think, is just more one of those things that the retention, I think, on the game for anyone who's playing it, it's got to be through the roof, which is good. But the problem is the starting metric wasn't all that high. I think there's some information that has come out that said that it's performing slightly worse than MW3 and Black Ops 6. If you haven't had a chance to try it out, luckily they didn't include campaign in that. Endgame would be its own thing, which would have been kind of cool for some people. But yeah, you get a chance to play multiplayer and zombies. And I would expect that during that weekend, the SBMM will probably feel a little bit looser just because there'll be so many people on the game, which is definitely needed to make it feel a little bit looser and not just feel like sweats are on the game. So we are still committed to the unprecedented seasonal support. Your continuing feedback will help shape our seasonal updates over the coming months. Season 1 is the largest live season ever, and we're just getting started. We won't rest until Black Ops 7 earns its place as one of the best Black Ops games we've ever made. And I think for some, this is basically impossible. For some, there's a lot of nostalgia factor, and the campaign is in fact that bad that it does weigh down the score heavily, that it's really hard to even beat that. But if you're strictly talking about zombies, it definitely competes with Black Ops 3, in my opinion, in terms of the quality of life and the way the game performs. The eggs are relatively smooth. They've copied a lot of the systems and modified them to work, plus the availability of modes. Multiplayer, it's kind of hard because I feel like in some instances they should have gone full jetpack or just stuck to boots on the ground, but then it truly would have been just Black Ops 6 too, right? So I don't know exactly how they'll do that or if it's even possible. But the reality is every season would have to be juiced like season 1, which as far as we know, only up to season 4 are going to be juiced, at least based off the leaks and rumors. Everything beyond that might be a little bit like whatever's left over because they got to go work on the next game. But that gets us to the next bullet point, which is our strategy going forward is changing, which this was a stupid strategy to begin with. It says we will no longer do back-to-back releases of Modern Warfare and Black Ops games. And this specifically referencing MW2 to MW3, made with Infinity Ward over to Sledgehammer. So it's 2 separate studios. So they were kind of working on the games at the same time, but they're different studios. So there's a little bit of overlap, but not a lot in that instance. Whereas Black Ops 6 to Black Ops 7 were both pretty much Treyarch working on those entirely, with a little bit of Raven helping in the campaign, which again, not good, and whatever else on the end game support. And then Warzone is only being done by Raven. So this has nothing to do with that. So this was good because it was a stupid decision to have it anyway. So realistically, they'll probably go back to the 3-year cycle, or potentially maybe they'll do some other things that aren't here. But realistically, it'll just go back to Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer Games, Treyarch. Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer Games, Treyarch. And this leads to the games feeling a little bit more different because as of right now, if you do Treyarch to Treyarch, it's obviously not going to feel that different because they like their game to be played a certain way. So that was a huge miss. And anyone could have spotted that when the decision was made. Somebody should have spoke up and said, no, this is stupid, and not done that. But maybe IW needed more time on their thing because they're modifying the engine again and they can go back to cooking, and hopefully they did cook, even though all the leaks sound pretty backwards. We will drive innovation that is meaningful, not incremental. This is almost impossible to commit to or do. Like Call of Duty's been around for 20-ish years. Like the formula is already kind of there. There's not really much innovation that could be done in that sense. Maybe people have ideas that I'm unaware of. But basically, COD's done it. Maybe we go back and do things that we've already done and reiterate it on it, like a pick 10 system for the creative class. Maybe they changed the way the minimap, they tried that, people don't like it. That's really the hard part with COD, because people generally play COD for these core elements and these certain pillars that they know the game will provide. If the game's not going to provide X, Y, and Z, the retention's going to fall off. And the people that are just showing up because they got hyped by initial like features or whatever the case, they don't stay around. COD has done this where they hype up a game and they hype it for non-COD players. They got a lot of the battle dads over back in MW 2019 and through that little period. And those games' retention didn't really sustain very long relative to a game like Cold War, which even though it flopped out the gate, it sold really well and its retention was good throughout the year because all the features were geared towards a COD audience. But on top of that, you still got to deal with the core issues that I mentioned a little bit earlier, which is charging $70 and acting like your microtransactions are a free-to-play game with battle passes and extra event passes and all these other ways to nickel and dime your audience without necessarily providing that much value relative to what you're charging or perceived value because they're charging $70, whereas there's tons of games I can get right now that are game of the year contenders like Expedition 33, which is like $40, or one of the other plethora of games that came out this year that come in under $50, that are games well worth playing, that aren't first-person shooters, right? While we aren't sharing those plans today, of course not, they don't want to commit to anything, we look forward to doing so when the time is right. So to be clear, the future Call of Duty is very strong, and we believe our best days are ahead of us, given the depth and talent of our development teams. We have been building the next era of Call of Duty, and it will deliver precisely on what you want, along with some surprises to push the franchise and the genre forward. So there's a bunch of stuff in there that is just whack. So they used a similar terminology when we went to Warzone 2.0, and we saw how that turned out. Not good at all. We'll deliver on precisely what you want all along. I doubt that, because you probably honestly don't know what the player base wants. You maybe know what a spreadsheet says, or some guy in an office who's making decisions who doesn't actually care about the franchise anymore and collects a multi-million-dollar paycheck and just wants to see the shareholders happy instead of just making a quality game that delivers on where it needs to deliver. Like the idea that they could put out that campaign, for example, and people just be okay with it. Like literally no one played it and said, yeah, this is dog. Like what are we doing here? And then it says, we look forward to welcoming you in and listening to you and moving forward together. So a lot of this, it's kind of like hard to believe because we already went through this. I have extreme doubts. So hopefully things like this don't happen again. This is Treyarch working on CoD every single year, when in reality, they shouldn't be working on ranked play. They should only work on zombies for their game, not the other titles. They shouldn't be supporting the other titles in any way. And the community is just so large that it becomes a problem almost no matter what they do. But the reality is, what made each game feel distinct is you didn't have the same studio making the game back to back, which you're saying they're doing away with, which was a no-brainer to begin with. But despite the horrible sales, a lot of it comes down to horrible sales relative to other CoD titles. Realistically, Black Ops 7 will probably sell slightly under 20 million. They probably won't go as low as IW, which was only 12 million, 13 million for the whole year, or something around that number. Obviously, these figures are kind of like general estimates. I think there's a couple CODs that were under 20 million, and I think this one will be probably in the 15 to 20 million ballpark, which most games would kill for. Some of that has to do with Call of Duty making a lot of money for Xbox with the Game Pass, even though they're being janky with their prices and all that stuff. The number one game played on Xbox Game Pass is Call of Duty. So they're still making money, even if it's a roundabout way, just not going to sell as many copies. But we'll see kind of how it works when they go next gen with GTA dropping. Obviously next year, it's not like Battlefield is going to drop another game. They won't drop another one for a few years. And the same thing with Arc Raiders. Whoever bought the game is just supported. So Call of Duty, again, is really only competing against maybe GTA, and that's about it. Regardless of that particular post, I still think that Black Ops 7 has been a lot of fun for multiplayer and for zombies. I think Warzone has kind of made some strides, but we're really not going to know what's going on with that until Season 2. I think the campaign's unsalvageable, even though people seem to be liking Endgame with the events they got going on with that. I'm shocked, actually, because for me personally, I don't feel like it has that much depth, but whatever. To each their own, I guess. And we'll kind of see where it goes from there. Let me know kind of what your thoughts in the comments. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.